Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Crane, and I am the program director at the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And you are listening to another Global Industry Spotlight. The Global Industry Spotlight is a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur, hitting many different industries in the sector. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, a room designed for Chicago's small business community, located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. I'm excited about today's guest. Today's guest is Adriana Leonard. She's an actor, producer, writer with 13 years involvement in the industry. She is the president of Peanut Productions, and she's producing and financing Beta, Signing Out, Camouflage, Wild Game, The Thing About Harry, and Herstory. She's also a strategic partner providing counsel and critical analysis and business development, investor relations, marketing strategy for major tech unicorn Project 44. She's an expert in film production process, casting, locations management with HBO, directing, producing, financing, and others. She has a lot of, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because she does a lot of different things. She's been in the industry. She's building things. So let's bring her in and have a conversation. Hi, Adriana. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
Thank
Wow,
you.
that intro makes me sound maybe a little bit cooler than I am.
It's impressive though, right? It's like you go into an industry with like just an image of what it's going to be, an idea, like this is what it's going to look like, and then you kind of discover, well, I like to do this, or what if I did this, or this didn't work so well, and I think from my own personal experience, you get to grow a lot of different things and wear a lot of different hats, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first showed up in LA, I had such a vision of what Hollywood world and the entertainment industry was going to be. And it was, well, one, I didn't realize that everyone in the state of California was going to be an actor. So that was that was a surprise. But yeah, the journey is ever changing.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. I laugh because my wife lived in LA for a while, and she said it was sometimes awkward going to parties because everyone was like trying to network. No one was really trying to hang out, because it was always like about industry and who you know and what you do. And she said sometimes it was like, I wish people would relax a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but let's get into your story. So can you just give a little kind of background about your career, and then we'll kind of talk about your acting career and some of the producing you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I grew up in South Carolina, country girl, a little bit redneck, with big city stars in my eyes. Always wanted to live in LA, New York, always wanted to do the acting thing, but kind of didn't know what that path looked like or even how to get there. My parents were very supportive, but in a small town, there were only so many avenues to kind of explore that. So I was a dancer my whole life. And right before I graduated college, I was kind of hanging out in Wilmington, North Carolina, where the Screen Gem Studios was there. Walked into an open call, booked my first TV role. By the way, that's not the way it happens. I wouldn't learn until later how lucky I got that I booked that role, because it got me my SAG card to go to LA with, which was incredible. But I think they just needed someone local, and I happened to be able to dance and act. So that was my first TV credit, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. And I'm braced to do it. So I packed up my car and went to LA and just started grinding as much as I could and as much as I knew how. Everybody loves to use the word green when they're like, oh, you maybe have something, but you're a little green, or maybe naive is the better word. But yeah, I was there was a blissful naivete to it.
Right. And looking at your career, you've booked some great slots and gigs with major I think movies and television shows. Can you walk us through that process? I know you're signed to an agency, I think DDO, and kind of how, as an actor, you were able to land some roles, and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I'm always inclined to really talk about the honest truth of how hard it is. I always listen to podcasts about celebrities and big actors, and I'm like, everyone talks about how hard it is to book the role, but nobody talks about how hard it is to get the agent. And it's very, very competitive. Getting representation that is on your team and will fight for you and push for you and not just keep you on their roster is really hard. And I had both of those experiences very young in my 20s in LA. And I will say, having representation is a small part of the puzzle, but you have to really put your feet on the ground and do 90% of the work. And that was all I knew. So luckily I got involved with a lot of casting workshops and just tried to get myself in front of casting directors any way that I knew how, and in front of producers and in front of directors and meet them. I'm not great at a lot of things, but I will say I am a master networker and have spent literally the last 13 years fostering those relationships and letting people get to know me and see my work and see my talent as it has grown. Yeah. And I think it's just, I spent a lot of years, I wanted to understand the industry from all sides so that I had a better grasp on how it worked. So I spent many years working in casting as an unpaid assistant, just so I could be in the rooms where the major directors were coming in and doing chemistry reads with celebrity talent or the A-list names. And I learned so much watching that process and watching what goes on in the audition room and what happens behind the camera and how casting thinks and how directors think and what they're looking for. And I think that has helped brace me with, as an actor, knowing that so much of it is not personal. If you put in the work and you hone your talent, that's important and that matters. But after that, there's not a lot you can control.
Yeah, I love the curiosity piece, right? It's like, especially when you're in the creative industries, and I can speak to this as a musician, looking at the different angles of entry, and how things are created and put together is so important, I think, in equipping to yourself to have a successful career. And, take us a little bit through like networking, right? I mean, I think networking is natural. I work with Scott Fetters, who is an incredible networker. What are some of the things that you think about when entering a room? Or do you pre-plan and kind of know the people that are going to be there? Or is it just like, you have a natural knack for it? What are some of your strategies?
Well, I would say I have to thank my dad for that gene. I think my dad could make friends with a cement wall.
Hey,
for better or for worse.
Right.
Anytime we went out to dinner as a kid, we were best friends with the wait staff. By the time we left, we had a contact everywhere.
Right.
So I got a little bit of that gene in me. But I think for me personally, it's, I do my homework if I need to, if I'm going into a room of people that I want to be educated and not waste their time, because time is our most valuable asset that you just can't get back, especially when you're on multiple projects and getting 150 emails a day. These people are busy. And so it's, again, not personal. They just have relationships that they're working on also. And you have to remember that. But I love people and I love getting to know people and I love meeting people. So my genuine connection and curiosity is finding ways to connect with people and shared interests. And that's kind of what I found, when I can connect with someone over, hey, I love to ski, you love to ski, I notice you do too. And instead of just diving into work talk, or this past year, I went to my series beta premiered at Bentonville Film Festival, and I learned that the programmers there and they're bored, they love to mountain bike, and the mountain biking trails in Arkansas are incredible. And so we shared that, and that was really fun. And that's just how I've been able to kind of, I guess they're not my friends, but I've been able to make genuine connections with people that I care about and who have mentored me and who I think I have provided mentorship to as well. And it kind of becomes an even playing field where we're helping elevate each other. And I think that's what's important, is always thinking, how can you elevate someone's space, time, circle, bubble?
Yeah, it sounds like you've built a community around your work, that can support you and you can support it. And I always tell people who are getting into any industry to find their community, and to build that up and around you so that you will survive on it. I know that for me, the community that I built up, in Chicago as a musician, I survived off of and grew from. So it's a really important point. I'm glad you brought that up. But now talking about beta, which I think is hilarious,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations on that, by the way. I like that the first thing in the reel was like, I want to be an entrepreneur, and it's just great. And thinking about like how many people actually say that, but maybe don't know the work behind it and kind of what that actually means. It's a great subject. But as a producer of starting your own series, what made you want to do it, and now it seems like you're kind of producing and financing and working on a bunch of projects. Can you take us through that process and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So beta kind of filled my need of my own Adriana brain of I always thought it'd be really good in business. But to your point, it's funny, to your point, I didn't know how to do that or what it looked like. So I was like, I'll be in the arts instead. That's an easier path, which is comical. But
Yeah.
so I always wanted to play that role. At the time, my partner was building a tech company, and I was watching him do that from ground zero and kind of wondering why it was so hard to get women in the room in the conversations that he was having. And started to think, wow, maybe this is, my make-believe world where I get to do both, and I get to understand and research and play and feel that business entrepreneurship, and also on the creative side, write and act and be a part of that. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from for beta. As far as balancing other projects, I think, people like to say that jack of all trades, master of none. And I always took that kind of offensive as, wow, does this mean I'm not the best at anything and I'm doing too many things, and am I not laser focused? But I think the truth is, as an entrepreneur in the creative industries, especially in the film world, for me, having a deeper understanding of all the pieces and diversifying my platform, so you call it, gives me a chance to really speak to many subject matters that I care a lot about. It gives me a chance my writing informs my acting informs my empathy as a writer, my ace brain is fulfilled with my producing, and I kind of get a little bit of all of it, which I think is great. And I think our industry has changed a lot, and the days of being able to say, I want to be an actor, and sitting around and waiting for auditions to come in and then having a high opportunity to book those auditions the world is very different now. You have people worldwide sending tapes because post-COVID, things are very virtual. So there used to be this understanding that if you got in the room, you had been, you were in the room auditioning and you had been vetted at that point, and it was you and maybe 500 other tapes that were being seen for a certain role. But now with virtual world, it's you and maybe 5,000, because the opportunity for anyone to submit a tape has gotten bigger. So for me, creating and jumping into the content side where I can put myself in those roles has really filled me in a way that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, and I can relate a lot to that thing of people being like, you're doing too many things, which means maybe you're not mastering one specific thing. I think about that all the time. I have a lot of different projects as well, and different things that I've started, and it's always, sometimes I get discouraged because I'm like, am I doing too much? But I'm like, the reality is that I'm interested in all the things I'm doing. I like them, and and I'm constantly growing my network. Like everything that I'm doing is for a purpose, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's to expand my network or to get money, whatever it may be, to continue on. And I think a lot of successful, or at least, I would say happy entrepreneurs or whatever, there's a certain curiosity that you need to have about the world around you, that will equip you to continuing to grow, and not sitting by the phone,
Yeah, Sam Jones has this amazing podcast. I don't know if you ever listen. It's a lot of actors, but he has an episode with Robert Downey Jr. where it was the first time that I heard someone talk about this in a not negative way. I highly recommend it. And he just talks about being more fully rounded as a human being serves you in all the things. And yes, there is a laser focus that is required to push through to the end, because that's the thing with indie filmmaking also, right? And as a producer starting from the ground up and not being in a big studio environment, is you're often the one who's wearing a lot of the hats, and it's your passion projects that you're pushing, and oftentimes along that path, there's not a straight path. It's such a crazy wild ride, and you lose people along the way and you gain people along the way, but you're really the one driving the cart. And that can get kind of exhausting or kind of discouraging, or you can feel kind of alone along the way. But you just have to know that, I think it's important that that these things can take a long time.
Right.
You read the inspiration stories of Squid Game this year, or Avatar always stuck in my head, or and what's the new with the chess show? I loved that show, but it took them years to have that made,
right,
and get that to network. And you just have to believe in the thing that you're doing so much that that the time to get there is worth it and going to be worth it.
Yeah. And so, as a independent producer, can we talk a little bit about how you approach funding and finding funding for your films? And just just
the
that
$1 million question. Yeah.
I mean, and just in terms of, okay, so, I'm an entrepreneur. I have this amazing idea. Maybe I have some access to equipment. I want to shoot a pilot series, some short content that then I want to expand on. What are my options? Who am I talking to? What should I be looking for? Am I using Patreon if I'm super at the beginning, or, what are some of the things that you kind of learned along the way?
Yeah, Daniel. No, I'm kidding. I'm, as I said to you earlier, I'm doing this and I still have all the questions.
Right, of course.
There are no right answers. And I think you get really scrappy. And then every time you learn something where you have to be a little less scrappy, or scrappy in a different way. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I was working like 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. I was bouncing from like an 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and then a 4 to 6 p.m. and then a night shift at like a late night, like 10 to 2 a.m. And people used to say, "What is your overhead? What are you doing? Why are you killing yourself?" And I was like, "Guys, I'm trying to make movies. What are you talking about?"
Right.
So my first 2 shorts I self-funded with my partner on those shorts, two different women, 2 different projects. But Camouflage was my first crowdfunding campaign. So we raised money on Kickstarter, which is amazing, but also another really hard in a different way, because you're asking people for money and you want to morally, consciously, for me to be able to do that. I wanted to make sure I could deliver something of value, and I wanted people to believe in me, and I wanted to prove that I was worth the investment. And then with beta, I started to get a little bit smarter and was like, wow, it's not sustainable to be able to just keep pulling out of my own bank account every time. Right. So we took a subject matter, my partner and I on the project, Carly Marcel, her and I started approaching tech companies and kind of pitching this idea of female entrepreneurial stories and the importance of them. And so we were able to partner with some tech companies in Chicago who helped finance that project, which was just incredibly amazing and lucky. But, it's just kind of trying to think outside of the box, which is who can you get to get behind you and what makes sense, and utilizing tax incentives and utilizing the Section 181 write-off. There are things as you start to get to different levels where you can get creative. Now I'm certainly in the space where I have a couple of projects where I'm like, okay, I need millions of dollars.
Right.
And I would say, some of the networks and relationships that I've been fostering for many, many years, who have watched me as a creator, are starting to come full circle as I make relationships with distributors or with content buyers. So it's a long journey. There's not that. I don't know if that answers anything.
No, it does. It does. Yeah. I mean, I think what I heard was, as I've grown my career, right, there's been different levels and I've learned different things. So, doing the Kickstarter, which I know, depending on what you donate, there's a certain thing that you'll probably get, right? So if like you donate X amount, you get this, or, and that is like, I've done that before, a lot to keep up with. It's really important to keep up with, but you also want to be able to deliver. And, in terms of someone getting or being able to, raise money for a film, does this happen at like Bentonville or film festivals where you're able to screen your stuff? Where are there like funders there and networks that can help support your work, or how does that kind of exchange work?
Yeah, I would say less of people looking, typically the people at festivals are looking to buy content that's already been made and that's screening at the festivals.
Hmm.
But for me, festivals have always been, again, a networking haven. Like
Right.
everyone there is creative and everyone is driven and everyone is trying to push something so hard and looking for the right partners. And so I've met people the year that we took signing out through about 8 festivals. It was so incredible. And the contacts I met that year, I still keep in touch with, and they still run festivals. And now some of them run grant programs, or, it's just things like that, that I just keep stressing you have to be in movement. And I was really a yes girl for many years in this industry. I would do everything. I would PA on a set, I would script supervise. If someone had a job and they needed it done, I would say yes. And then I would go home and Google, what is this? What's the job entail? And how do I do this? Um, and I think it gave me more of an understanding of how does the money flow. And it
Right.
also gave
Right.
me an
Of course.
understanding of we're all kind of doing the best we can with what we have, and nobody really knows what they're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
they do, but it goes back to community, right? Like it takes a village, and that's my
Right.
favorite part of the film
Right.
industry is the collaboration and community. It's a special thing. It's hard to get a movie made, and when you do,
Yeah.
you're like, yes, we did it.
Right. Well, it seems like you definitely have a fearlessness as well, in terms of just going for it, right? I mean, I think,
I hope so. I try. I mean, I'm scared all the time, but
Right, but
I
I
put
mean,
on my poker
yeah.
face.
Yeah, I think we all, if we get honest with, yeah, we're terrified. I mean, or
Yeah,
anxious about things, or there's always the other side of the face. But in terms of what counts is the actions, right? Like you
yeah.
can sort out the other stuff, but it's what you're doing that's going to get you places. So, kudos to you for, just growing so much and being a part of building your own series, and even bringing women into the entrepreneurial space, which is an important subject matter, one that is not talked about enough. And so that, I think that's special in itself. And I want to hear about the back roads of Arkansas with mountain biking as well. I was like, that sounds like exactly what I want to be doing right now. um
Yeah, me too.
so yeah, so to kind of close up the conversation, in terms of just, we've already got a kind of a lot of advice from you just in hearing about your story and some of the things that you built, but what are some things that you're working on right now, that you're excited about kind of moving forward?
Oh gosh, I have never been busier in my life than I am in this moment,
Okay.
and I have so many cool things, very few of which I can really talk about.
Right, I like that. That's like a
um,
good level. It's like, well, I have a lot of cool
yeah.
things, but now I can't say anything about it. So
I hate to be that person that's so vague, but I don't want to jinx anything
right, of
or
course, of course.
jump the
No,
gun here.
please.
But as soon as I can talk about them, you'll hear me screaming from the top of my
Right.
lungs and be like, Daniel, let me tell you all the things. But some cool projects that we are hoping to have in a totally new space by the end of this year.
Okay, cool.
Some cool things in development, some fun passion projects not related to the industry that are still cool ways for me to tie in um, things I care about in the world and nonprofits with the film industry. So yeah, I'm like putting every ounce of energy I've ever had right now into building hopefully my artist empire. Is that a
Yeah.
thing? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
build it. I mean, yeah, it's totally a
Yeah,
thing.
that's a
I
thing.
love the idea of, like, waking up in the morning being like, "How's my empire doing today?"
Yeah.
Um, not so much.
Let me go check on my empire.
Um, yeah, I'd love to hear, maybe offline too about, the nonprofit stuff that you're focused on and some of your passion projects with that. But well, this has been a great conversation, Adriana. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. And I think everyone can if you listen to this podcast or watch this right now, there's being an entrepreneur in the film industry. It's a journey, as it is with any industry. Um, you know, uh, Adriana showed us that, like, yeah, if you do a bunch of different things, learn about, how the industry works, the ins and outs. Like, you can kind of grow your own career, and be in charge of it, which sounds awesome, but it's also a lot of hard work, as we know.
If you
So
build it, they will come.
if you build it, they will come.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, Field of Dreams, please. I want some old men coming out of a cornfield. But any kind of quick 1-2 advice for our up and coming, film entrepreneur, empire builder people?
Oh man, be so careful who you spend your time with.
Yeah.
It matters.
Mm.
Energy matters. You can manifest everything you want with the right energy, and it's too easy to get caught in that trap of the bitterness of an industry that takes a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of rejection. So you got to stay on the bright side.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming and talking to us here at the Global Industry Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, that was a great conversation. I'm really awesome to connect with Adriana Leonard. She's building a lot of interesting things. Seems like she has an exciting year that she can't talk about, which usually means that it's going to be a great year. Again, my name is Daniel Crane. I'm the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. You have been listening to Global Industry Spotlight, streaming live out of 2112. Next week, we're going to be talking to Scott Lynch, who is the founder and head of XR development at Voyeur, an immersive media company focused on using stories and technology to democratize experiences. It's a long sentence, but it's going to be an awesome conversation. I'm wishing everyone a great rest of the week. Take care, and we will be in touch.